My name is Patty, and I am 35 years old. Life as a single mom of 2 kids has been challenging since my husband walked out. I always thought my family would support us through tough times, but what I discovered at my dad's birthday party broke my heart. Years of favoritism culminated in that moment when I found my children sitting on the floor with paper plates waiting for leftovers while my sister's kids enjoyed the meal first. I still remember how my heart shattered that day. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you've ever had to stand up for your children, hit subscribe if you want to see what happened next. To understand what happened at my father's 70th birthday party, you need to know about my family dynamics. I am the youngest of 2 daughters in my family. My older sister Lisa has always been the golden child. From the moment I could understand what was happening around me, I realized there was a clear difference in how our parents treated us. Growing up in our modest suburban home, Lisa always got the first pick of everything. New clothes Lisa got to choose first, and I received whatever matched my parents' budget afterward. School activities. They never missed a single one of Lisa's performances or games, but they were often too busy or tired to attend mine. Even during holidays, Lisa always received the more expensive gifts while I got practical ones. I remember one Christmas, when I was 12. Lisa unwrapped a brand new bike, with all the accessories, while I got school supplies and a second-hand jacket. My mother Eleanor would always justify this by saying Lisa needs more support or Lisa has bigger dreams. My father Thomas was more passive, but never contradicted my mother's decisions. He would occasionally slip me a few dollars or a small treat when she wasn't looking, but he never stood up against the obvious favoritism. I tried so hard to earn their approval. I maintained good grades, stayed out of trouble, and helped around the house without being asked. Nothing seemed to change their perspective. The constant comparison to my sister made me feel like I was never enough, no matter how hard I tried. By the time I turned 18, I was desperate to escape the shadow of being the less favored child. That's when I met Mark. He was 22, charming, and showed me the attention and appreciation I'd been craving my entire life. 6 months after we met, we got married despite my parents' concerns about me being too young. Looking back, I realize I rushed into marriage partly to create my own family where I would be valued. Mark and I struggled financially at first. We lived in a tiny apartment while he worked at an auto repair shop, and I took classes at the community college. When I got pregnant with Emma at 27, I was terrified but also excited to create the loving family environment I never had. Aiden came 2 years later, and for a while things were good. Not perfect, but good. Then, 3 years ago, everything fell apart. I discovered Mark was having an affair with a younger colleague at work. The pain of betrayal was overwhelming, but what hurt even more was his decision to leave us. He packed his bags one Thursday evening, promised he'd send money for the kids, and walked out to start a new life with his girlfriend in another state. The child support checks came irregularly at first, then stopped completely after a year. Since then, I've been working 2 jobs to make ends meet. During the day, I work as an administrative assistant at a local clinic, and 3 evenings a week, I wait tables at a restaurant near our apartment. The schedule is brutal, but it's what I need to do to provide for Emma, who is now 8, and Aiden, who just turned 6. Lisa's life, meanwhile, has been picture perfect. She married James, a successful businessman who owns a chain of furniture stores. They live in a beautiful house, in an exclusive neighborhood, just 15 minutes from our parents. They have 3 children. Sophia is 10, Tyler is 9, and Madison is 7. Lisa doesn't need to work, and spends her days volunteering at the children's private school or attending social events. Our parents retired 5 years ago. They sold their house and bought a smaller one just 3 blocks from Lisa's place. This convenient arrangement means they are deeply involved in the lives of Lisa's children. They attend every school event, take the kids for weekends, and shower them with gifts on birthdays and holidays. When it comes to my children, the difference in treatment is stark. My parents rarely visit us in our small apartment across town. On the few occasions they do come, they bring small, practical gifts for the children, nothing comparable to what Lisa's kids receive. They've never offered to babysit, even when I was desperate for help after Mark left. Lisa's children have the newest toys, designer clothes, and experience lavish family vacations. My kids wear thrift store finds and have never been to Disney World or any resort. Emma once asked me why her cousins got to go to the beach every summer while we stayed home, and it broke my heart to explain that we simply couldn't afford it. Despite this unequal treatment, I tried to maintain a relationship with my parents. I wanted Emma and Aiden to know their grandparents, even if the connection wasn't as strong as it should be. I convinced myself that some family presence was better than none at all, especially after their father abandoned them. I swallowed my pride and hurt feelings, hoping that eventually my parents would see how special my children were, and treat them with the same love and attention they gave to Lisa's kids. Little did I know how wrong things would go at that birthday party. The invitation to my father's 70th birthday party came via text message from my mother 3 weeks before the event. There was no formal card like the ones I knew she had sent to other family members and friends. The message was brief. "We're having a dinner for your father's birthday on Saturday the 15th at 5 p.m. The whole family will be here. Let me know if you can make it." My initial instinct was to decline. The timing was difficult, as I was scheduled to work at the restaurant that evening, and requesting time off meant losing much-needed income. Plus, family gatherings had become increasingly uncomfortable over the years as the disparity between Lisa's family and mine became more obvious. But then Emma found out about the party, while we were on a rare video call with my parents. "A party for Grandpa. Can we come, Mom? Please," she begged, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Aiden joined in, jumping up and down. "I want to see Grandpa and Grandma, and play with Tyler." Looking at their hopeful faces, I couldn't say no. My children had so few opportunities for family celebrations, and they genuinely loved their grandparents despite the infrequent contact. I texted my manager and managed to swap shifts with another waitress, though it meant working a double shift the following Sunday to make up for it. "We're going to Grandpa's party," I told the kids, trying to match their enthusiasm. "And we'll need to find him a special gift." The next 2 weeks were a flurry of preparation. Money was tight as always, but I was determined to find a meaningful gift for my father. After considerable thought, I found an old photograph of him fishing with my grandfather, had it professionally restored, and placed it in a handsome frame. It cost more than I could comfortably afford, but I wanted to give something personal rather than another generic gift card. Emma and Aiden spent an entire Saturday afternoon making handmade birthday cards for their grandfather, carefully drawing pictures and practicing their handwriting for the messages inside. Emma drew a picture of Thomas teaching her to plant flowers during one of our rare visits, while Aiden depicted his grandfather showing him how to throw a baseball. These precious memories were few, but my children treasured them. The night before the party, I laid out our best clothes. For Emma, a blue dress she had worn only once before to a school concert. For Aiden, khaki pants and a button-up shirt that still fit from Christmas. For myself, I chose a simple but elegant blouse and skirt combination that I kept for special occasions. I even splurged on a trim at the budget hair salon down the block, wanting to look my best. As I ironed their clothes, I rehearsed conversations in my head, preparing responses to the inevitable questions about our living situation, my jobs, and the absent child support. I was determined not to let anything spoil the celebration for my children or my father. "Tomorrow will be good," I promised myself. "We'll focus on the positive and make happy memories." The morning of the party dawned bright and clear. I woke up early to prepare, helping the children bathe and get dressed. Emma twirled in her blue dress, delighted with her reflection. "Do I look pretty, Mom?" she asked. "Like a princess." "You look beautiful, sweetheart," I assured her, brushing her long brown hair. The prettiest girl at the party. Aiden struggled with the buttons on his shirt, but insisted on doing it himself. "I'm a big boy now," he declared proudly. "I can dress myself for Grandpa's party." We left our apartment with plenty of time to make the 45-minute drive to my parents' house. The gift was carefully wrapped, the cards tucked safely in my purse, and a homemade fruit salad, the most affordable contribution I could manage, was secured in the back seat. However, fate had other plans. Halfway to our destination, my aging car began making an alarming noise. The check engine light flashed on and the vehicle started to shudder. I pulled over to the side of the road, panic rising in my chest. This couldn't be happening today of all days. "What's wrong?" Mommy, Aiden asked from the back seat, his voice small and worried. "Just a little car trouble," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I called for roadside assistance. "We'll get it fixed quickly." But it wasn't quick. The tow truck took nearly an hour to arrive, and the mechanic on duty delivered the bad news: a broken timing belt. It wasn't something he could fix on the spot, and my car would need to stay at the garage. I called my mother, explaining the situation and asking if someone could perhaps pick us up. "We're all busy setting up here, Patty," she replied, her tone making it clear that our transportation problems were an inconvenience. "Can't you just take an Uber or something?" The Uber ride cost nearly $50, money I had been saving for Emma's upcoming school field trip. But I smiled through it, telling the children we were having an adventure. By the time we arrived at my parents' house, we were almost an hour late, and the party was well underway. During the car ride, Emma had been unusually quiet. As we approached the house, she finally voiced what had been on her mind. "Mom," she asked softly, "why don't Grandma and Grandpa ever come to see us? They always see Sophia and Tyler and Madison." The innocent question pierced my heart. I struggled to find an answer that wouldn't burden her with adult concerns or speak poorly of her grandparents. "They live very close to Aunt Lisa's house, sweetheart. It's just easier for them to visit there. And they're getting older now, so traveling is harder." "But we could go see them more," she persisted, her young mind trying to solve the puzzle. "We're busy too with school and my work," I explained gently. "But we're here today, and that's what matters. They'll be so happy to see you." I swallowed the lump in my throat and put on my brightest smile as we approached the front door. Little did I know that this would be the day everything finally came to a head. My mother's house looked festive when we arrived. Balloons in my father's favorite colors, blue and silver, decorated the porch. A large banner reading, "Happy 70th Birthday, Thomas," hung across the front door. Through the windows, I could see people moving about, laughing and talking. I took a deep breath, squeezed my children's hands reassuringly, and rang the doorbell. My mother Eleanor answered after the second ring. She was dressed elegantly in a purple dress I had never seen before. Her silver hair styled perfectly, and wearing the pearl necklace my father had given her on their 40th anniversary. "Finally," she said by way of greeting. "We thought you might not make it." Her hug was brief and perfunctory. She bent to give Emma and Aiden quick pecks on their foreheads, but didn't engage with them further. "Sorry we're late," I explained as we stepped inside. "The car broke down and we had to get a ride." "Well, everyone's in the living room. Your father's opening gifts." She turned and walked ahead of us without offering to take our coats or the fruit salad I was carrying. The contrast between the warm, inviting exterior of the house and the chilly reception made my stomach tighten, but I pushed the feeling aside. This day wasn't about me or my relationship with my mother. It was about celebrating my father and giving my children a chance to connect with their extended family. The living room was packed with people. My father sat in his favorite recliner, surrounded by opened gifts and discarded wrapping paper. Lisa and her husband James occupied the sofa closest to him, with their 3 children sitting cross-legged on the plush carpet, playing with what appeared to be new tablets. Several of my parents' friends filled the remaining seats, everyone holding glasses of wine or champagne. My father barely looked up when we entered, engrossed in examining a golf club that was clearly an expensive gift. Lisa noticed us first and waved casually. "Oh, you made it," she called out, not bothering to get up. "Dad, look who's finally here." My father glanced our way and nodded. "Patty," he acknowledged, "and the kids." He didn't stand to greet us or open his arms for hugs as he had done earlier for Lisa's children, judging by the photos already posted on the mantel from earlier in the celebration. Emma and Aiden stood uncertainly by my side, their earlier excitement dampened by the lukewarm reception. I nudged them forward gently. "Go wish your grandfather a happy birthday," I encouraged them. "And give him your cards." They approached Thomas, shyly holding out their handmade cards. "Happy birthday," Grandpa Emma said. "I made you a card with flowers like the ones we planted together." "Me too," Aiden added. "I drawed you playing baseball with me." My father accepted their cards with a distracted smile. "Thank you," he said, placing them on the side table without opening them. "That's very nice." I stepped forward with our wrapped gift. "Happy birthday, Dad. This is from all of us." He unwrapped it with more attention than he had given the cards, but his response was subdued, a picture frame he observed. "That's thoughtful." It's a restored photo of you and Grandpa James on that fishing trip to Lake Michigan, I explained. The original was fading, so I had it professionally restored. Yes, he said, examining it briefly before setting it aside. I remember that day. The conversation quickly turned back to the topic they had been discussing before our arrival, Lisa and James's upcoming vacation to Hawaii. My sister was describing the luxury resort they had booked and the exclusive excursions they had planned for the children. We're staying in an oceanfront suite, she was saying. The hotel has a private beach and 5 swimming pools. The kids can take surfing lessons while James and I enjoy the spa. My mother beamed at her. That sounds wonderful, dear. You all deserve a nice vacation after James's successful business expansion. I found a vacant chair in the corner and gestured for Emma and Aiden to stay close. There were no other children at the party except for Lisa's 3, who remained absorbed in their electronic devices and ignored their cousin's arrival. Can we play with Sophia and the others? Aiden whispered to me, eyeing his cousins hopefully. Go ahead and ask them, I suggested, knowing it was better for him to try than for me to intervene. Aiden approached the group tentatively. Hi, Tyler. Can I play too? He asked his cousin. Tyler barely looked up from his tablet. We only have 3 games and they're all being used, he said dismissively. You can watch if you want, Sophia added, not unkindly, but not making room in their circle either. Emma had better luck with Madison, who at least showed her the new doll she had received that morning, though their interaction was brief, before Madison returned to her siblings. A family friend eventually noticed us and brought over cups of punch for the children and offered me a glass of wine, which I gratefully accepted. The alcohol would help dull the ache of witnessing yet another family gathering where my children were treated as afterthoughts. As the afternoon progressed, the pattern continued. Lisa's family remained the center of attention. My parents proudly showed off Sophia's recent ballet recital photos, Tyler's soccer trophies, and Madison's art project that had won a school award. No one asked about Emma's recent achievement in learning to play the recorder, or Aiden's excitement about being chosen as line leader at school milestones I had shared in our infrequent family text chain. When my mother announced that dinner would be ready soon, Lisa's husband James stood up to make a toast. To Thomas, he said, raising his glass. Not just a wonderful father-in-law, but a second father to me, and an amazing grandfather to our children. Thank you for always being there for us. Everyone clinked glasses while I fought back the urge to point out that my father had never been there for my children in the same way. He had never attended their school events, taken them fishing as he did with Tyler, or babysat them overnight to give me a break as he regularly did for Lisa. Your mother tells me you're still working 2 jobs, one of my parents' friends commented to me during a lull in conversation. Her tone carried a hint of judgment, as if my employment situation was a choice rather than a necessity. Yes, I replied simply. It's what I need to do for now. Such a shame about your marriage, she continued. But you know what they say about rushing into things when you're young. I bit my tongue to keep from responding sharply. This woman knew nothing about my life or the struggles I faced, yet felt entitled to offer thinly veiled criticism. Just as the conversation became unbearable, my mother announced that dinner was ready to be served. I excused myself to use the restroom, grateful for a moment alone to compose myself. I splashed water on my face and gave myself a silent pep talk in the mirror. Just get through dinner, I told my reflection. Then we can leave early, citing the car situation as an excuse. Little did I know that what awaited me when I returned would push me beyond my breaking point. When I returned from the bathroom, the dining room was bustling with activity. My mother was carrying a large platter of roast beef to the table, while several guests arranged side dishes and bread baskets. I noticed that the formal dining table was set beautifully with the good china crystal glasses and silver candlesticks that had been in our family for generations. What I didn't see were my children. Where are Emma and Aiden? I asked, scanning the room. My mother barely glanced up from her task. The adults are eating in here. The children are in the kitchen. That seemed reasonable enough. At large family gatherings, it was common to have a separate table for the younger ones. I made my way to the kitchen to check on them and make sure they were settled before joining the adults for dinner. What I saw when I entered the kitchen stopped me in my tracks and caused my blood to run cold. Lisa's 3 children, Sophia, Tyler, and Madison, were seated at the kitchen table. They had proper place settings with the everyday china plates and regular silverware. Each had a cloth napkin and a glass of what looked like sparkling apple juice. A woman I recognized as my mother's part-time housekeeper was serving them generous portions of roast beef, mashed potatoes, and vegetables. My children, however, were not at the table at all. Emma and Aiden were sitting cross-legged on the kitchen floor, paper plates balanced on their laps. No silverware, just plastic forks. Instead of glasses, they had paper cups of water. Their plates were empty, and they looked uncomfortable and confused. For a moment, I couldn't process what I was seeing. My brain refused to accept the reality before me. Then a wave of realization crashed over me, and with it came a surge of protective fury, unlike anything I had ever experienced. "What is going on here?" I demanded, my voice sounding strange, even to my own ears. My mother turned from where she was instructing the housekeeper. "Oh, Patty, we ran out of room at the kids' table. Your two will eat after the others finish. There will be plenty left over." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "You expect my children to sit on the floor and wait for leftovers while their cousins eat at the table?" "It's not a big deal," my mother said dismissively. "They're used to leftovers." Before I could respond to this callous statement, Lisa entered the kitchen carrying an empty bread basket. She surveyed the scene and had the audacity to add, "They were born for crumbs." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I watched as Tyler snickered at his mother's comment, and Madison giggled behind her hand. Sophia, to her credit, looked uncomfortable and kept her eyes on her plate. Emma's face had turned bright red with embarrassment, but it was the expression in her eyes that broke my heart. There was a resigned acceptance there, as if she wasn't surprised by this treatment. At 8 years old, my daughter had already internalized the message that she was somehow less worthy than her cousins. Aiden, too young to fully understand the slight, but old enough to sense something was wrong, looked up at me with confusion. "Mom," he said quietly, his paper plate crinkling as he shifted, "when do we get to eat?" In that moment, something snapped inside me. All the years of swallowing slights, making excuses for my parents' behavior, and trying to shield my children from the reality of their second-class status in this family, came crashing down. "Get up," I said to Emma and Aiden, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. "Right now, get up off that floor." They scrambled to their feet, abandoning the paper plates. Emma immediately reached for her brother's hand, a protective gesture that showed she sensed the tension in the room. My mother frowned. "Patty, you're overreacting. We'll feed them in a few minutes. There's no need to make a scene." "A scene," I repeated incredulously. "You put my children on the floor with paper plates while their cousins eat at a table with proper dishes. And I'm the one making a scene." Lisa rolled her eyes. "It's just dinner, Patty. Not everything has to be a drama." "This isn't about the dinner," I said, my voice rising, despite my efforts to control it. "This is about years of treating my children as if they're less important, less valued, less worthy of respect and love than yours." By now, the commotion had drawn attention from the dining room. My father appeared in the doorway, followed by James and several curious party guests. "What's all this shouting?" my father demanded. "You're ruining my birthday dinner." I turned to face him, no longer caring about maintaining appearances or protecting his special day. "Did you know about this? Did you know your grandchildren were sitting on the floor waiting for leftovers while the others ate first?" My father looked uncomfortable. His eyes darted to the scene, taking in Emma and Aiden, standing awkwardly by the refrigerator, the paper plates on the floor, and Lisa's children still seated at the table, their plates full of food. "Now, Patty," he began in what he probably thought was a reasonable tone, "there's no need to blow things out of proportion. I'm sure your mother was just trying to manage a crowded house the best way she could." "The best way she could," I echoed in disbelief. "By making my children sit on the floor, by explicitly telling them they're only worthy of leftovers, by allowing Lisa to say they were born for crumbs." James stepped forward, his expression conciliatory. "I think everyone needs to calm down. The kids can all sit at the table together. We'll make room." "That's not the point," I exploded. The point is that this was the first choice, the automatic assumption that my children would be treated as less than. And it's not just today. It's been their entire lives. I could feel tears threatening, but I refused to cry. Not now, not when I needed every ounce of strength to stand up for my children. Emma pressed against my side, and I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, drawing her close. Every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering, it's the same story. I continued looking directly at my parents. Lisa's children get the best gifts, the most attention, the prime spot at every table. Mine are an afterthought, if they're thought of at all. Do you have any idea what that does to them? What message that sends? My mother's face had hardened into a defensive mask. You're being ridiculous. We love all our grandchildren equally. No, I said firmly, you don't. And what's worse is you don't even try to hide it. You flaunt it. You want them to know they're less loved. That's enough, my father thundered. I won't have you accusing us like this in our own home on my birthday, no less. You're right, I said suddenly, feeling eerily calm. That is enough. Enough of pretending this is normal or acceptable. Enough of subjecting my children to this treatment in the name of family harmony. I looked around the kitchen, taking in the shocked faces of the party guests. My mother's angry expression, my father's flushed face, Lisa's defensive posture, and finally my children's confused and hurt eyes. We're leaving, I announced, reaching for Aiden's hand. Emma, get your coat, please. Don't be dramatic, Lisa scoffed. They haven't even eaten yet. They'll eat somewhere they're treated with dignity. I replied no longer, caring how my words would be received. Somewhere they don't have to wait for your children's leftovers. Patty, you're blowing this completely out of proportion, my mother protested as I guided Emma and Aiden toward the front hall where our coats were hanging. It was just a practical solution to a crowded house. I stopped and turned back to face her, conscious that most of the party guests had followed us and were now watching the confrontation unfold. Some looked embarrassed, others seemed fascinated by the family drama, while a few nodded slightly, as if my outburst had confirmed suspicions they'd long harbored about our family dynamic. A practical solution, I repeated, my voice low but intense. Would you have ever in a million years asked Sophia, Tyler, or Madison to sit on the floor with paper plates, to wait until everyone else had eaten before they could have their dinner? My mother's silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I continued. It wasn't practical, Mom. It was a statement about who matters in this family and who doesn't. My father pushed through the small crowd that had gathered, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Patty, that's enough. You're making a mountain out of a molehill here. Nobody meant anything by the seating arrangements. Dad, this isn't about seating arrangements, I said suddenly, feeling exhausted. This is about a pattern that's existed my entire life, and has now extended to my children. What pattern? He demanded. We've always treated you fairly. The absurdity of his statement unleashed years of pent-up hurt and resentment. Fairly. When have you ever treated me fairly? When I was 10, and you missed my school play because Lisa had a soccer game the same day. When you bought her a car for high school graduation and gave me a $50 gift card. When you moved 3 blocks from her house after retirement, so you could see her children daily, but visit mine twice a year. My voice was shaking now, but I couldn't stop. Do you remember when Mark left us? Do you remember what you said to me, Dad? You said, well, you did rush into the marriage. Not I'm sorry or how can we help? Just a reminder that once again I had failed in your eyes. James, Lisa's husband, stepped forward with his hands raised placatingly. Let's all calm down. This is supposed to be a celebration. It's easy for you to be calm, I retorted. Your children have never been treated like they're worth less than their cousins. Lisa pushed past her husband, her face contorted with anger. This is ridiculous. You've always been jealous of what we have. It's not our fault that you made poor life choices. Poor life choices, I laughed bitterly. Like what, Lisa? Working 2 jobs to support my children after their father abandoned us, trying to give them a good life despite having no help? Or is my poor choice bringing them here today, thinking that maybe, just maybe, their grandparents might show them the same love and respect they show your children. Emma tugged at my sleeve. Mom, she whispered, everyone's looking at us. Her small voice cut through my anger, reminding me why I was taking this stand in the first place. It wasn't about my hurt feelings or decades-old resentments. It was about protecting my children from the pain I had endured growing up as the less favored child. I took a deep breath and knelt down to her eye level. I know, sweetheart. And I'm sorry you're uncomfortable. But sometimes, we have to stand up for ourselves, even when it's hard. I looked up to see my mother watching us, her expression a mixture of anger and something else I couldn't quite identify. Was it guilt, shame, or just annoyance that I had disrupted her carefully planned party? We've never tried to hurt the children, she said stiffly. We give them what we can. What you can, I echoed, standing back up. You gave Tyler a new bicycle last month for no special occasion, just because he mentioned liking one in a store window. Emma has been saving her allowance for 6 months to buy new art supplies, but it never occurred to you to help her. We can't be expected to buy everything for every grandchild, my father interjected defensively. I'm not asking you to buy them anything, I said, my voice cracking. I'm asking you to see them, to value them, to treat them like they matter as much as Lisa's kids. Lisa scoffed. Of course you're asking for handouts. That's what this tantrum is really about, isn't it? You're angry because James and I can provide more for our children than you can for yours. Her words stung because they were so far from the truth, yet I knew everyone in the room was weighing their validity. My parents had always attributed any complaint I made to jealousy or resentment, never considering that their behavior might actually be unfair. This has nothing to do with money, I said firmly. I've never asked you for financial help, Lisa, nor would I. This is about basic human dignity. My children were sitting on the floor with paper plates, while yours were at a table with proper dishes. That's not about money, that's about respect. An uncomfortable silence fell over the gathering. Several guests shifted awkwardly, clearly wishing they were anywhere but witnessing this family meltdown. We were just joking, Lisa finally said, though her tone lacked conviction. About the leftovers and crumbs. It wasn't meant to be taken so seriously. They weren't jokes, I replied quietly. They were beliefs. Beliefs that have shaped how you've treated my children their entire lives. I reached for our coats and helped Aiden into his. We're leaving now. Thank you all for making it so abundantly clear where my children stand in this family. Patty, don't be ridiculous, my father spluttered. You can't just walk out of my birthday party. I looked him directly in the eye. Watch me. With that, I took my children's hands and walked toward the front door. No one tried to physically stop us, though my mother called out one last plea. What about your car? How will you get home? We'll manage, I replied, without turning around. We always do. As I closed the door behind us, I heard the murmur of voices resume inside. No doubt they were already constructing a narrative about my overreaction, my sensitivity, my inability to take a joke. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care what story they told about me. I only cared about the story I was telling my children, that they deserved respect, dignity, and unconditional love, and that I would fight for these things on their behalf, even against family. We walked down the driveway in silence. It was only when we reached the sidewalk that Aiden's small voice broke through my thoughts. Mommy, he asked, his voice trembling slightly, why does Grandma hate us? His innocent question shattered what remained of my composure. I knelt on the sidewalk and gathered both children into a tight embrace, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. Grandma doesn't hate you, I said, choosing my words carefully. She just doesn't know how to love everyone equally. But that's her problem, not yours. You are both amazing, wonderful children who deserve all the love in the world. Are we in trouble? Emma asked, her eyes wide. For leaving the party? No, sweetheart, I assured her. We left because you weren't being treated right, and that's never okay, not even by family. I pulled out my phone and ordered a rideshare, wincing at the cost, but knowing it was our only option for getting home. As we waited by the curb, I struggled to contain my emotions. I was angry, hurt, and sad, but also strangely relieved. After years of enduring slights and making excuses, I had finally stood up for myself and my children. When the car arrived, we climbed in silently. As we pulled away from my parents' house, I glanced back just once. Through the front window, I could see the party had resumed. No one was looking out after us. No one had come to apologize or ask us to return. And in that moment, I knew I had made the right decision. So I walked out, and I didn't look back again. The days following my father's birthday party were tense. My phone buzzed constantly with text messages and calls from family members, most of which I ignored. I needed time to process what had happened and to focus on making sure Emma and Aiden were okay. The first message came from my mother less than an hour after we left the party. "You've embarrassed yourself and this family with your outburst. Your father is very upset on his birthday. I hope you're satisfied." There was no acknowledgement of why I had been upset. No recognition that putting my children on the floor with paper plates might have been wrong. Just anger that I had disrupted her carefully orchestrated event. My father texted the next morning. "Your behavior yesterday was completely unacceptable. You owe your mother and sister an apology. Call when you're ready to be reasonable." Several of my parents' friends who had witnessed the confrontation reached out as well, most taking a diplomatic approach. "We're so sorry about the misunderstanding," one wrote. "Family gatherings can be stressful. Hope you can work things out." Misunderstanding. As if what had happened could be chalked up to a simple miscommunication rather than years of systematic favoritism. The most hurtful messages came from Lisa. "Congratulations on ruining Dad's 70th, she wrote. "Always have to make everything about you, don't you? The kids are still talking about how Aunt Patty went crazy at Grandpa's party." She followed this with another text. "James says I should tell you we're sorry if you felt the kids were treated unfairly. We didn't mean anything by the seating arrangement. It just worked out that way." I read each message with a mixture of anger and sadness, but I didn't respond to any of them. There was nothing I could say that would make them understand, no words that could penetrate decades of entrenched behavior and attitudes. Instead, I focused on Emma and Aiden. The ride home from the party had been quiet, both children subdued by the events they had witnessed. Once we were back in our apartment, I ordered pizza, an uncommon treat, and we ate while watching their favorite movie. I wanted to create a safe, comfortable environment where they could process their feelings if they wanted to. It was only as I was tucking them into bed that Emma finally brought up what had happened. "Are we not going to see Grandma and Grandpa anymore?" she asked, her voice small in the darkness of the bedroom she shared with her brother. "I don't know, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "Right now I think we all need some space to think about things." "I didn't like sitting on the floor," Aiden said from his bed. "It made my legs hurt." His simple complaint broke my heart. Children shouldn't have to articulate why being made to sit on the floor while their cousins sit at a table is hurtful. It should be obvious to any adult, especially those who claim to love them. "You shouldn't have had to sit on the floor," I assured him. "That wasn't right." "Sophia said sorry to me," Emma volunteered suddenly. "When we were getting our coats." She whispered it when no one was looking. This small act of kindness from my niece brought tears to my eyes. At 10 years old, she had shown more empathy and awareness than the adults in the situation. "That was very nice of her," I said, my voice catching. "Sophia is a good cousin." "We don't need Grandma and Grandpa," Emma declared with sudden fierceness, reaching across the small space between the beds to hold her brother's hand. "We have each other." The maturity and resilience of my children amazed me. They had faced rejection from their own family, yet still found strength in our small unit of 3. "That's right," I agreed, kissing each of their foreheads. "We have each other, and that's the most important thing." Later that night, after the children were asleep, I called my best friend Jennifer, and finally let myself break down. I sobbed as I recounted the scene at the party, the years of subtle and not so subtle favoritism, and my fear that I had permanently damaged my children's relationship with their grandparents. Patty Jennifer said firmly when I had finished, "What happened at that party wasn't just rude or thoughtless. It was emotional abuse, plain and simple. Your parents and sister were sending a clear message to your children that they are less valuable, less important, less worthy of basic dignity than their cousins. You did exactly what a good mother should do. You protected them." Her validation helped ease the doubts that had been plaguing me. Had I overreacted? Was I, as my family suggested, just being overly sensitive or making a scene for attention? "But they're their grandparents," I said weakly. "Emma and Aiden love them despite everything." "And they can still have a relationship with them," Jennifer replied. "But on terms that include respect and equal treatment. You've spent your whole life accepting less than you deserve from your family. Don't teach your children to do the same." Over the next week, I continued to ignore the increasingly irritated messages from my parents and sister. I focused on work, on helping the children with their homework, on maintaining our routine. But the situation weighed heavily on me. Then, exactly 1 week after the disastrous party, there was a knock at our apartment door. When I opened it, I was shocked to find my father standing there, alone, holding a gift bag in each hand. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice gruff but not angry. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him enter. The apartment was small and modest compared to his house or Lisa's, but it was clean and comfortable, filled with photos of the children and their artwork. "The children are at their after-school program," I said. "They won't be home for another hour." He nodded, seeming relieved to have time to talk to me alone first. He placed the gift bags on the coffee table and sat on the edge of the sofa looking uncomfortable. "Your mother doesn't know I'm here," he admitted. "She still thinks you're the one who needs to apologize." I felt my defenses rise. I'm not going to apologize for protecting my children from being treated like second-class family members. To my surprise, my father didn't argue. "I know," he said quietly. "You shouldn't have to." He looked around the apartment, taking in the carefully patched furniture, the second-hand bookshelf stuffed with library books, the wall covered in the children's school certificates and art projects. For perhaps the first time, he was really seeing the life we lived, so different from the comfortable existence he and my mother enjoyed, or the luxury Lisa's family took for granted. "I've been thinking about what you said," he continued, his voice hesitant. "About the pattern. About how we've treated you compared to Lisa, and now your kids compared to hers." I waited, not trusting myself to speak. "I never thought of it as favoritism," he said. "Lisa was just easier. She did what we expected, followed the path we understood. You were always different, more independent, questioning everything. It was harder to connect with you." "That doesn't justify treating my children differently," I said firmly. "They've done nothing wrong except be born to a single mother who struggles financially." My father nodded slowly. "You're right. I saw what happened at the party with the seating, but I didn't say anything. I should have." His admission surprised me. I had expected him to defend my mother's actions, to minimize what had happened, as he had always done with the inequities of my childhood. "Why didn't you?" I asked, genuinely curious. He sighed heavily. "Habit, I suppose. Your mother makes these decisions, and I go along with them. It was easier than causing a conflict. But watching you stand up for your kids, it made me realize I've never really stood up for you." Tears pricked my eyes at this acknowledgement, something I had longed to hear for decades. "I can't promise that everything will change overnight," he continued. "Your mother is set in her ways, and Lisa." He trailed off, then shrugged. "But I want you to know that I hear what you're saying, and I'm sorry. Truly sorry." He gestured to the gift bags. "I brought something for Emma and Aiden. Not to buy their forgiveness or yours, but because I missed giving them proper birthday gifts last month. I hope that's okay." I nodded, touched by the gesture but still wary. "Thank you. But Dad, this isn't just about gifts. It's about how they're treated, the messages they receive about their worth in this family." "I understand," he said. "And I want to do better. If you'll let me, I'd like to start spending more time with them. Real time. Not just holiday gatherings. Maybe I could take them fishing like I used to take you when you were little." The memory of those rare, precious outings with my father brought a lump to my throat. They were among the few times I had felt truly valued by him during my childhood. "They would love that," I said softly. We talked for another 45 minutes, more openly than we had in years. I explained how hurtful it was to see the disparity in how my children were treated compared to Lisa's, not just with material things, but with time, attention, and basic respect. He listened without becoming defensive, occasionally asking questions that showed he was genuinely trying to understand. As the time approached for Emma and Aiden to return from their after-school program, my father stood to leave. "I should go. I don't want to surprise them without your preparation. But I'd like to see them soon if that's all right with you." "I need some ground rules first," I said firmly. "No more comparing them to their cousins. No more treating them as less important. And if Mom or Lisa can't abide by these rules, then we limit our interactions." He nodded solemnly. "That's fair. I'll talk to your mother and to Lisa. I can't promise they'll change right away, but I can promise that I will." As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. "Patty, what you did at the party, standing up to all of us like that. It took courage. More courage than I've ever had. I want you to know that." After he left, I sat on the sofa and finally allowed myself to cry, not tears of anger or hurt this time, but of release and cautious hope. Perhaps something good could come from the pain of that terrible party after all. 6 months have passed since that fateful day at my father's birthday party. 6 months of difficult conversations, setting boundaries, rebuilding relationships, and most importantly, healing. The journey hasn't been easy, but it has been necessary not just for my children, but for me as well. In the weeks following my father's unexpected visit to our apartment, things began to change slowly but noticeably. True to his word, my father made efforts to spend time with Emma and Aiden. He started picking them up every other Saturday for special outings, just the 3 of them. He took them fishing at the local lake, taught them to fly kites in the park, and even attended Emma's school concert, sitting proudly in the audience as she played her recorder with the 3rd grade music class. My mother was more resistant to change. Her initial response was to withdraw, completely refusing to speak to me for nearly a month. When she finally did reach out, it was with a carefully worded message that acknowledged no wrongdoing, but expressed a desire to move forward for the sake of the family. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. Our first meeting after the party was tense and awkward. We met at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes, with just the 4 of us, my parents and my children. My mother had brought small gifts for Emma and Aiden, books she had chosen with obvious care based on their interests. It was perhaps the first time she had really considered what they might like rather than what was convenient or left over from what she had given Lisa's children. "Your grandfather and I have missed you," she told them, her voice softer than usual. "We hope you'll come visit us again soon." Emma, always the more cautious of my 2 children, regarded her grandmother with a measured look. "Will we have to sit on the floor again?" she asked directly. I held my breath, waiting for my mother's reaction. To her credit, she didn't become defensive. Instead, she looked genuinely ashamed. "No, sweetheart," she said quietly. "That was wrong of me. You will always have a proper place at our table from now on." It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from my mother, and while part of me wanted to demand more, I recognized the effort it had taken her to admit even this much fault. Lisa was the most difficult. She remained angry about what she called my birthday party meltdown, and insisted that I had overreacted to what was just a practical seating arrangement. It took several frank conversations, some of which ended in tears, and raised voices before she began to understand the pattern of behavior I was objecting to. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during a family dinner at my parents' house 3 months after the incident. We were all seated at the table, including Emma and Aiden, who had proper place settings just like everyone else. The conversation had been pleasant, if somewhat strained, when my father mentioned that he was planning to take all 5 grandchildren to the county fair the following weekend. "All 5," Lisa repeated, looking confused. "But I already told the kids you were taking them on Saturday." "I am," my father confirmed. "And I'm taking Emma and Aiden too. That's all 5 grandchildren." Lisa's expression revealed more than any words could have. It was clear that she had simply assumed the outing would be only for her children, as had been the case so many times before. The fact that my father was deliberately including my children as equals seemed to genuinely surprise her. Something shifted in that moment. Lisa looked from my father to me, then to Emma and Aiden, who were happily eating their dessert, unaware of the significance of the exchange. A flicker of understanding crossed her face, followed by what looked like genuine remorse. "Of course," she said softly. "All 5. That will be fun." It wasn't a complete transformation, and there have been missteps along the way. Old habits and attitudes don't change overnight. But there has been progress, real progress, in how my children are treated by their grandparents and aunt. There have been other positive changes too. 3 months ago, I was offered a promotion at the clinic where I work, a position with better hours and significantly higher pay. It allowed me to quit my evening waitressing job, which means I now have more time with my children and less financial stress. The timing of the promotion wasn't related to the family drama, but it felt symbolic somehow, as if the universe was acknowledging that I had finally stood up for myself and my worth. Emma and Aiden have flourished with the additional attention from their grandparents and the reduction in family tension. Emma's teacher commented on how much more confident she seems in class, while Aiden's nightmares, which had been frequent after his father left, have all but disappeared. They still ask about their dad occasionally, but those questions no longer carry the same weight of abandonment. They know now beyond any doubt that they have people who love them unconditionally, who see their worth, who will stand up for them when necessary. As for me, the most profound change has been internal. For most of my life, I accepted the role of less favored child, less important sister, less worthy parent. I made excuses for how I was treated, doubted my own perceptions, and prioritized keeping the peace over demanding respect. Standing up to my family that day was terrifying, but it was also liberating. For the first time, I honored my own feelings and my children's dignity above everyone else's comfort. Last week, my father asked if he could come by for coffee while the children were at school. We sat at my small kitchen table sipping from mismatched mugs, and he said something I never expected to hear. "You did something brave that day," he told me, his eyes meeting mine steadily. "Something I've never had the courage to do. You refused to accept less than what you and your children deserve. I've spent my life going along with things I knew weren't right because it was easier than causing conflict. But watching you that day, it made me realize what real strength looks like." I couldn't speak past the lump in my throat, so I just reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I wish I had been brave enough to protect you the way you protected Emma and Aiden," he continued. "But I'm trying to make up for that now." That conversation healed something in me that I hadn't even realized was still broken. The little girl who had always felt less loved, less valued, finally heard the words she had longed for. Not that she was wrong about how she was treated, but that she deserved better. That standing up for herself wasn't selfish or dramatic, but necessary and right. I've learned that sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing to invest your energy where you're valued. My children now know they deserve a seat at the table, not just crumbs from the floor. And in standing up for them, I finally stood up for myself. Family relationships can be complicated and painful, but they can also heal and grow with honesty, boundaries, and courage. Have you ever had to stand up to family members for yourself or your children? What did you learn from that experience? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you found my journey meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that they deserve more than crumbs too. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are worthy of respect and love, especially from those who claim to care about you.